Brett, man, thank you so much for joining me. It's been, I think, man, 3.5, 4 years since last time we talked. But thank you for hopping on. I'm excited to get into a lot of things you got going on. First off, how you doing this morning?
I'm good, Sam. You're right. It's been a while. Time flies
It does.
since we met, and you helped me tremendously, which I needed with my golf game. But we had a
I don't
good
know
time.
about that.
We
What?
had a good time. But yeah, it's been a while. I'm doing okay.
How do you dove hunt? I think the season just kicked
You
off.
know what? I don't. My nephew asked if he could shoot doves out here on my property and threw some scratch out or whatever. It's too dang hot for me to even think of. I love to hunt. I'm not a wing guy. I found that like a duck hunter will walk through 10,000 acres, the best deer hunting that you could ever find just to shoot at a duck. And I'm sort of the opposite with deer. This is the first year in probably 4 or 5 years that me and my brother, and we got about 3 or 4 other guys that we all hunt together. The last few years, we've gone on an elk hunt somewhere out west.
Dang, I would love to do
And
that.
and to me, that is about as good a hunting as you can get just from the scenery and the weather. Because as you know, August and September, along with June and July, are pretty
Hmm.
hot where we live and pretty humid and can be
Definitely.
nasty. So it's nice to go early September, late September, sometimes early October out west, and you're actually waking up to 20 degrees. Um,
Do y'all when y'all kill an elk, do you take it home with you?
yeah, well, I tell you what, we last year we all like we had a big group went and like five. We got 5 elk. We were in Idaho,
Dang.
and the outfitter that we hunted with would say like you choose to do how you want, and so like you pick your choice of cuts. I got mostly ground beef,
Hmm.
and then they dry ice it and sit and ship it along with
Sure.
the antlers. So it was a good deal. But elk, I love eating elk. I mean,
Yeah, we love elk. We love
yeah,
elk. When we can get it, we have a nice local butcher whenever sin. We make sure to get our elk. And then we also have a guy I grew up with going to church, Will Carnes. He raises cattle about 30 minutes from where we live. So outside of that, that's where we get our stuff and get, pounds and pounds of ground beef. And it really does make a difference when you eat good,
yeah,
fresh, no
yeah,
preservatives, good meat. It's a big
yeah,
difference.
yeah. Big difference. I agree.
With I gotta ask you about Concussed. How did you get in touch with Tyler Sash's story and family? And what was, you know, we'll get into maybe some of, your hits and your injuries and concussions, but what like made you take that on?
Well, actually, I've had a lot of people ask me, when did I do this? And my portion of the movie or the documentary. And it's probably been 8 years since I was interviewed.
Okay. I didn't know that. Yeah.
And we had done it, like we didn't do it all at once. And some of it you end up not using, just typical TV stuff. But at the time, I was not familiar, and I think I actually played. We were on the same field together, like we
Hmm.
were, opposite sides. But I don't remember Tyler. But David Cano is really kind of the brains of the whole documentary. I mean, it was his baby, and he and I became friends, and he's really a lot of friends with UFC guys, the MMA fighters, and kind of in that world, and wanted to do a concussion documentary, which that's sort of been done before, but he was the one who really told me about Tyler Sash and that story, and I was really like most people, I was unfamiliar with it.
Yeah, me too.
I'm 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 familiar with other stories. If you ever, I don't know if you watched the movie Concussion with
With
Will
Will
Smith.
Smith.
It was a
Yeah.
long time ago. That was really my first eye-opening, like, this is serious.
Yep.
Guys that like Junior Seau, um, a guy that's probably a little bit before your generation, played with the Bears, Dave Durson, great
Hmm.
player. They won the Super Bowl. Steve McMichael now, who just was inducted into the Hall of Fame, has got ALS. And I bring that up because what they do know about ALS and dementia and neurological diseases is that, which they don't know much, is that the percentages go up pretty dramatically with head trauma in regards to getting a neurological disease. It doesn't mean you've had concussions that you're guaranteed to get something, but it sure ups your chances.
Sure.
So we've actually been, just doing a little bit of stuff here and there over the last 6 to 8 years. And finally, David had gotten it to a point where he said, let's try to get it to, to be a film and hopefully get some of these outlets to
totally
to offer it. And so I've yet to sit down and watch the whole thing. I've seen bits and pieces, obviously, and has a part in it myself. But everybody that's seen it, and I don't know where it stands. We didn't do it to make money. I mean, you'd have to sell a gazillion, whatever it is. However they qualify.
However they do it.
But everyone has said that it's a great story, very informative, but also very sad.
Yeah, it was. It was eye-opening. Like I kind of put it on there. I was like, I'm gonna talk with Brett soon. I want to make sure I watch this. And I ended up just like sitting down and watching the whole thing because it was sad, but it was like actually they showed a clip of Tyler. He played for Iowa.
Right.
He had some interceptions against my college, South Carolina, in a bowl game. And I remember that game, and that was at the very beginning of the film. I was like, damn, so that was Tyler. And then it went into like, his family and his girlfriend and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, I mean, I ended up just sitting through the whole thing, and it made me start thinking about like all the different football players and other athletes in different sports. I feel like might be getting CTE just from head trauma. Basketball, I played tons of soccer. I'm heading the ball all the time. Like all that sort of stuff is wild to think about. With your internal, or maybe not internal, but like the fraternity of quarterbacks, do y'all talk about that? Is that a common subject with you guys, or
no? I think it's probably more talked about today, not because of our documentary, but I think just in general with the protocol that the NFL is actually started by the last year, my 20th year. They implemented that protocol where there's a supposedly an unbiased neurologist at every game that has the power to pull you out of the game at any point. I still think that's a little biased because had Tom Brady, in the Super Bowl, got dinged, got up a little woozy. Is they gonna pull him out of the game? Belichick would probably send up, Knuckles and a couple other guys to, break his kneecaps. But I don't talk to a lot of players just in general. I don't have an open line with a lot of guys. I see guys from time to time. I do talk to, a player or two on occasion, but it's one of those things, and I'm gonna speak for most of the guys I played with or against, or guys that played before me, or guys that played after me. I think the consensus is if we don't talk about it, it won't be an issue. You're almost avoiding it, if that makes sense, because you certainly don't want CTE.
Yeah.
Or any of the side effects that come with head trauma. But it's there. And tomorrow can be totally different than today. And then the rest of your life can be, not near as pleasant as it once was.
Sure.
And, you look at Junior Seau, a guy who I played against many a times. Tremendous player, tremendous athlete. When he killed himself, he was in the prime of his life. He was in his 40s. He was still, a tremendous athlete in great shape. And I was shocked because that guy loved everything about getting up in the morning. And if it
Yeah.
was running on the beach, if it was running bleachers, if it was hitting, tackling dummies or the Oklahoma drill, he loved every bit of it. And he was the last person I would have ever thought
Hmm.
would have done something like that. So, which tells you, and Tyler Sash is a very similar story. Everything, everybody loved him. He was
Incredible
a
athlete.
hometown
Yeah.
hero, and goes off the deep end. I mean, he became unrecognizable
Hmm.
from a personality perspective,
Yeah.
and that's just scary how the light switch can change just like that.
Yep. Do you I think he ended up dying from a mixture of pain medications. Did that make you reflect at all about how you went through your battles with pain medication? And then I think at some point you just quit cold turkey and almost never went
Yeah,
back.
yeah. And I've spoken a good bit, especially lately, about my addiction and how that played into my career. I mean, I see the Tyler story and other people like it, whether they played pro ball or not. And I think to myself, how blessed am I to have overcome that and still manage to be somewhat sane
Hmm.
is only from God. Because when I tell people, I think most people either unfamiliar with my addiction and issues that I had at that time, which were 94, 95, 96, 97. And so when I tell them my story that I was pulling Vicodin out of my throw up on the floor because I got to where I was gagging to take the last 3 months of my addiction, I was taking 16 Vicodin ES, and you build up to that, obviously.
Sure.
And I couldn't swallow them, so I'd end up gagging, throwing them up, and there was no way I was going to waste them. And I would pull the soggy pills out of my throw up. I mean and I knew at that moment that this is a serious problem. I mean,
Sure.
I'm digging in my vomit and it may be in a bar room, bathroom floor.
And
Not that
you're
there's any good, not that there's ever a good time to pull something out of vomit, but that's how bad off I was, and how easily the addiction snuck up on me.
Mhm.
I had a separated shoulder, got it injected after the game. When the injection wore off, it was killing me. Took a couple of pain pills. Not only did it help with the pain, but I felt good. I
Mhm.
like the euphoric feeling it gave me. And then next thing I know, I'm all in. Um, so it did bring back some memories. Just this documentary coming out and the story of Tyler that um, has led me to, like, I spoke at the Razorback Touchdown Club in Arkansas last week. Great event. My buddy Keith Jackson, who I played with in Green Bay, my tight end, is it's big in that community, and asked me if I'd come speak. And so I told the story about my addiction and being in rehab several times and fighting and telling them they didn't know what in the hell they were talking about, that I didn't have a problem. And then the third time I went to rehab, I was like, you know what? You were right.
I need some
I
help.
got a problem. I need to address it. It's funny how I came full circle. Um, but again, very blessed to
Mhm.
have gone through that and never taken a pain pill since. Not that I want to. And I've had my hip replaced and a couple of back surgeries. And I don't want to go down that road again.
Yeah.
Uh, but the thing that I think, especially with NFL players, and I don't know this for certain, but my best guess would be they know it could happen at any point.
Mhm.
You slip on the practice field, hit your head, playground, walking out of your house and it's icy, you slip, hit your head. That could be the one hit that changes your life forever. And it
Sure.
can happen at any point. So I think that, players go, I know it's a possibility. I don't want to even think about me having CTE or the repercussions from head trauma, but it's there, but guys try to, I think, steer away from it.
Sure, no, and I think, yeah, I mean, it's part of that fear too. Like they don't think about it, they don't talk about it. Maybe it won't happen to them.
Yeah, maybe it'll go away and won't happen to me.
Yeah, for
Exactly.
sure. With with that, it's kind of wild too. During probably the highest part of your addiction, you were winning Super Bowls, MVP of the
VP.
league. I remember last time you were on, you would say you would like disappear for like a week at a time, and then like pop up at practice the next week or something.
Well, I took them every night, and I found that when I was in rehab with all these other, whether it be athletes, mostly were like business people,
Mhm.
successful business people, how similar we were. Like you become so structured. Like when I took my pills, it was 9 o'clock at night every night. Don't ask me why. It was 9 o'clock. And when I would take, and this would be during the week. Now, if we had a Monday night game, I obviously wouldn't do it. I would usually do it early in the day uh, when I had a night game, but that was very rare. So I would take these pills and I would be up till like 5 o'clock, just wound tight. Just I'd be calling people, friends. I mean, this was prior to cell phones.
Sure,
I was watching TV. I was just wired to, like it did the adverse effect to me
sure.
that would do to a normal person.
Yeah,
It
just
knocked them
wired you
out,
up.
feel the pain, and they could wake up groggy and look like I don't like to take that, but I liked it because of the negative part of it was about 8 o'clock. I would go in. We'd have a team meeting. We'd start our meetings and eventually get to walk through, and then a lunch, and then practice and meetings again. I would sleep through just about every meeting because I wasn't sleeping at night, and I mean, I wasn't completely blinded by my success, and what I mean by that was it sort of helped me continue on my addiction path because I was like, I'm playing, I can't play
Sure.
anymore. We're winning games. I'm telling myself this
Yep.
because I thought no one had any clue that I was as deep into my addiction as I was. And my wife later told me, "Well, I would flush down some of your pills. I knew what you were
Dang.
doing, and I just didn't know how to address it." And I'm like, "You knew?" She's like, "Everyone knew."
Dang.
And as you find, like when you go to rehab, you start talking to all these other people, and they're like, "I thought I was the only one who knew."
Oh yeah.
Um, so those 3 or 4 years went back to back to back MVPs. Each year we got better and better, and then won the Super Bowl, and then lost the Super Bowl. So I mean, it was easy for me to to look in the mirror and say, uh, you know,
Everything's great. What? Yeah.
everything's great. I mean, you're playing great. Picking pills out of vomit. Yeah, it's probably you know
It's hard to reflect on that in the moment, though.
right, right. But once I finally got past all that, and never drank again,
Hmm.
never took a pain pill, never took like a street drug or anything. Once I quit all that, I realized how friggin'
Crazy that
screwed
is.
up I was.
Yeah, totally. It's hard. I mean, it's.
And then at the time, concussions wasn't even a
Mhm.
conversation. If you
Yeah.
had a concussion, it was like, get your ass back on the field.
Yeah. And even addictions weren't that much of a conversation.
No, no. And again, I thought while I was in the thick of it, no one has a clue.
Yeah.
Meanwhile,
Now
I'm asking guys for pills, like, hey, if they give you 2 pills, give them to me. You
yeah.
know, after a while, people start talking and they're like, Favre asked you for pills too?
Yeah.
Yeah, he did. Man, he's heading down the wrong path. But I'm thinking, I'm playing great. We're winning games. I'm on ESPN. Everything's good.
Yeah, life is good. You're
I
you're
got
living
everything in control.
you're living your dream, really,
Yeah.
in a sense, what people think. With with your mentality and your mindset, you talked about this on the film a little bit about you having a warrior mentality, and you almost took it as, your accountability to kind of be out there for every play. Kind of reflecting on that, from your stance, what was, internally going through you, as that warrior mentality, as trying to be accountable for the team?
Yeah, I think I took a lot of pride in being available
Yeah.
every Sunday or Monday or Thursday night, whenever the game was. And to me, one of the things I'm most proud about in my career, and I think in hindsight could adversely affect me in the future,
Hmm.
would be I played in every game. It mattered to me to be. I wanted the Packers or whoever I played for to not worry about that position, to focus on other positions because they knew that come game time, I was going to play no matter what.
Yeah.
And the more success I had after I got hurt and would play, the more the legend grew, if you want
Hmm.
to call it that, where it no injury was going to keep me down.
Hmm.
And so I think, and that's good, but what are the long-term repercussions of that?
Yeah.
I didn't think about that then. Never even crossed my mind throughout my whole career, and I played 20 years. It never dawned on me that you might want to reconsider
Yeah.
playing. You know, playing every game, but if there's an injury that maybe give it a rest. That never even crossed my mind.
Hmm.
And then 5 years or so after I retired, you start feeling little things here and there, and then it leads to something else, and you start thinking uh, the John Wayne attitude
Yeah.
maybe served me well while I was playing, but maybe not so much after the fact.
Yeah, it is wild. I mean, remember thinking, watching you play when I was growing up and stuff, being like, I mean, he's so tough. He never quits. He might have a broken hand or twisted ankle or
Yeah,
screwed up shoulder. Like he's always in there, which, yeah, you're right. As a fan, it's like, man, you know, it's like a legend of its own. Like you said, it's
yeah,
like, it's kind of like Cal Ripken Jr., but instead you were getting, destroyed by 350-pound guys.
yeah. And that was, even though in some respects it's not that long ago, in others it's like ages ago because quarterbacks you could hit them, you could
Yeah, it's
not
changed.
technically late, but it happened. You even get close to a quarterback now. You don't have to hit him.
Yeah.
I mean, you can harmlessly bump into him and he just fall and they throw the flag. So
Mhm.
so defenses are so scared to hit the quarterback. Great for this generation. They're getting paid a boatload of money and they're
They
not getting
are.
hit on top of it.
I was about to say, what do you think about those changes? Do you think it's gotten too light?
I think it's gotten too light in regards to the average Joe watching who, like I don't know anything about hockey, but when I watch what little bit of hockey I watch, I want to see a
Mhm.
fight. I want to see
Yeah.
a check into the wall. And I think people are that way with football. Like the days of the Giants playing the Bears and it being a 7-3 slugfest that in a weird kind of way is fun to watch
Mhm.
are long gone. You don't see that. I mean, it's wide open. You hit a receiver coming across the field that's helpless, you're gonna get a flag. You you get knocked into the quarterback on his lower leg, and you had nothing to do with it. You were trying your best to stay away. You get
Sure.
fined 50 grand. So I think from the fans' perspective, especially the older generation that can appreciate those slugfest games and the quarterback getting smoked, um, I think it's affected them. They still watch probably, but
Yeah. It's definitely a different game to watch nowadays.
yeah. And the younger generation, it's what you know and
Mhm.
what you're growing up with. So you don't know what you're missing.
Sure. With the current quarterbacks in the league, who are a few that you enjoy watching the most?
I think there's a lot of good young talent. I really was impressed with the young quarterback at Houston.
Yeah, CJ Stroud.
I thought he played exceptionally well, but when you kind of, and I didn't know a lot about his background and his upbringing, it makes a lot of sense. Grounded, very good parents.
Hmm.
You know, he had a structured environment. He's not a prima donna. The guys love him. His success is not a surprise when you kind of know a little bit more about him. So I was very impressed with him. And I know if I were an owner of a team, I would have no problems paying him a huge contract
Yeah,
because I know this is a classy kid that deserves every penny. So sky's the limits for him, barring some injury. But like Tua, his, he kind of gotten, lost in the shuffle,
hmm,
not only at Alabama, but in the pros, and then kind of managed to find his niche. And very impressive the numbers he put up.
yeah. Their system's unique too. Their head coach over
System's
there.
unique, and I think it's a perfect fit for him and how he plays. He's not a physical guy and has some concussion issues, but seems like a great leader, very accurate. They're a big chunk offense. I mean, they'll next thing you know, they'll be up on you 35
Yeah,
nothing.
Tyreek
And all
Hill's
the
crazy.
touchdowns are 50 or more yards. But like a guy like Brock Purdy, I don't see how you can't root for a guy like that.
Yeah, I
I mean,
like Brock too.
when you put a panel of all the quarterbacks that are in the league, starters and backups, and you just said, pick me who you think are the 10 best. Brock Purdy's going to be the last one you pick out of everyone.
Shorter white dude. Yeah.
He was, Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick in the draft, and he's making less money than some of the college quarterbacks out there right now
Yeah.
with the NIL. But yet he's led this team to win after win and Super Bowl appearances. You can't help but pull for a guy like that.
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
but Jordan Love,
Man, he's
everyone wants
good,
to
dude.
talk about him being a rookie. Yeah, it's his first year, but he's been around. He's seen it done by Aaron. He's seen success at its highest and took over. And to me, a totally different style of play.
Hmm.
He has a good arm, doesn't have a great arm, but neither did Tom Brady, and he had tremendous success.
Yeah.
But Jordan seems to be the complete package. And I know it's 1 year, but I was very impressed with how he got better as the season progressed. I mean, they had at one time, everyone had written the Packers off, including.
Well, I didn't know much about Jordan either. Then all of a sudden, I mean,
Yeah,
wow.
like out of nowhere, you're like, wait a minute.
The last 8 games of last year, I think he had the top QB percentage in the league. Him and CJ Stroud, the guy
And
from
no
Houston.
one wanted to play against the Packers at that point.
Yeah.
It was like, if they get in, they're going to do some damage.
Yeah, they're a popular Super Bowl pick this year.
Yeah, and they should be. I mean, barring injury, there's no reason, because I think Jordan, I don't know him. He seems very humble.
He does, yeah.
Doesn't wear his emotions on his sleeve, and that's neither good or bad, but you can't tell if he's up by 21 or down by 21, or he's having a good game or a bad game. He's just even killed.
Hmm.
And the guys seem to love playing with him and for him. So he's, I'm very curious to see if he can repeat that.
Yep.
I don't see why he can't.
He's got good wide receivers too.
Yes. And then Josh Allen's the guy that plays, he and Mahomes more like my style.
Yeah.
Josh probably runs it a lot more, but he's good at it.
He does. He's a big boy, man.
Yeah, and could have easily been in the Super Bowl the last few years, but they got to find a way to get over the Kansas City hump.
I know. It's crazy.
Which is easier said than done.
Yeah. Mahomes is so good. It's ridiculous.
Andy Reid was my
he's
quarterback
awesome.
coach for 3 or 4 years, and Andy is the simplest guy you'll ever sit in a meeting with. He's not, even if you don't really know a lot about football, and you just said, Andy, kind of give me, football 101. When you leave out of there, you'll go, well, that wasn't very complicated. Now you can meet with other coaches in the same style meeting and walk out of there more confused than you walked in there. But Andy, so my point is, Andy is going to give Patrick the best opportunity to succeed week in and week out, but in the simplest way. Because I've been around a lot of coaches. Mike Holmgren was very simple, but very demanding and wanted perfection. But he didn't complicate things. If there was an issue within like the verbiage of the play or what you're asking me to do, like maybe change the protection, maybe change an audible, offering several things at one time can be good or bad. If there was an issue in regards to that, and maybe I said, calling the play is the hardest part, Mike.
Yeah.
He would make it simple. All right, let's do this. But then there are coaches that, I after the meetings, I'd be like, I'm further away than I was at the start of the meeting. So Andy is, to me, is going to make it so simple that the last thing he wants you to do is to think too much. And I think if I were a coach, that's exactly how I would be. Like, I want the quarterback to focus on making the good throw or the right decision rather than barking out the signals and calling out up front or
being a robot.
It really doesn't matter. So Andy and the combination with he and Patrick right now is untouchable.
Yeah. And honestly, if you think about, your career and your style of play and Mahomes' style of play, you're pretty similar.
Yeah.
You both have
I
a
would say
freedom of running around and
I'm sure he could outrun me in a 40, but he's not really a runner or, he will move around and make some throws, but he's more of a stay in the pocket, backpedal 20 yards and make a throw. Where I would be, my first impulse was to bolt. The guy came free because I knew that was where I was at my best. That playground mentality, and I knew my arm could get me pretty much out of anything, and I could make any throw. So, but throwing the ball from anywhere is definitely something that Patrick and I not only
any
did
arm slot, anything like that.
Sidearm, underhand, option flip, backpedaling, rolling to the left. Nothing was off limits for me, and certainly not Patrick.
I need you to retell this story I listened to the other day. You spent your first year in Atlanta, and I can't remember the quarterback's name, but he was a veteran guy, and he was kind of, you a rookie on the team, and he would kind of haze, rookies get hazed a little bit, and he challenged you, I think, to a throw off, or maybe you challenged him to a throw off.
So my first year in Atlanta, I'm at the end of training camp. They cut all the backup quarterbacks, and it was Chris Miller was the starter. He was the first round pick 6 or 7 years prior to that. Had some injury problems and stuff, but they had a lot of potential. And I almost think they drafted me to kind of coax him into playing well. Well, I was a knucklehead in training camp in Atlanta. And so they end up trading for a guy named Billy Joe Tolliver, who was the starter at San Diego. And he comes in, they put him right away at second string. They demote me to third. And Billy Joe, my first impressions of him were, I hate this guy. He is the biggest turd. The first thing he says to me is, hey, you'll be third string until I'm gone or you get traded or cut or go somewhere else. But it ain't the end of the world, Rook. That was my first interaction with him. And I'm like, what an asshole. Turns out we end up being the best of friends still to this day. And I think the absolute world of Billy Joe. But we had our moments. So he had a strong arm. He was a country boy from Texas. And I'm from Mississippi. And he was giving me hell all the time. Jerry hated me, Glanville. But one day in practice, what eventually kind of buried the hatchet between he and I, he would always bust my balls about something, go get me a Coke, Rook, go do this, go do that. So the one thing I knew I could do at that time was throw. I didn't think anyone on the planet could outthrow me. Now, whether or not I could read defenses remained to be seen. So one day at the end of practice, everyone always heard me and Billy Joe going back and forth about different stuff. So Billy Joe was like, all right, Rook, you want to have a throw off? We'll have a throw off. So Glanville catches, wind of this and, practice over. He's like, all right, everybody gather around. And he called Billy Joe, Ode to Billy Joe. There was a song by Janis Joplin that was Ode to Billy Joe. And he called me Mississippi. And he said, everybody gather around. Ode to Billy Joe and Mississippi's going to have a throw off. I got my money on Mississippi. Guys, I got $5 on the. So Billy Joe says, all right, Rook, you go first. I'm thinking in my mind, you barking up the wrong tree here now. So I was never one that got way back and took a bunch of steps to throw it. I got back about 3 steps, shuffle, let it go, and it lands. It wobbles. It comes out like a wounded duck, but it lands 83 yards away. That's a long ways.
That's a long ways.
I'm pissed that it wasn't a spiral and further, but that was the furthest up to that point that I'd ever thrown it, and still to this day the further. But it was funny. They say 83 yards. Billy Joe's got a ball in his hand. He throws it down on the ground and he says, F this, you win. I can't throw it 83 yards. And
yeah,
we were inseparable from then on. But yeah, I had to put him in his place.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's probably the last time somebody challenged Brett Favre to a damn throw off for distance at that point in time. With another guy that can throw it extremely far, your ex-teammate, your former teammate, Rodgers, now with one of your other former teams, the Jets. How do you think it might play out for him this year?
Well, the thing about Aaron, I knew right away when we drafted him. I didn't know a lot about him, but when we got in camp together, I mean, he was young, but he was the closest thing I would say to me, arm-wise, quick release, accuracy, and just brute arm strength.
Yeah,
that I had ever seen. So I mean, he was the one person. Billy Joe was close, but Aaron was like, man, he might can outthrow me.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that he had. I knew he could throw the ball from anywhere, but I didn't know much about his game. And since then, he's played a lot like me. The biggest difference is he doesn't make the mistakes that I make. I was a riverboat gambler and would take a shot no matter what. He's more calculated. Aaron has by far the best football IQ of anyone I've ever been around. Like him or not, he is smart.
Yeah, sure.
I would always be amazed when I would watch him, after I left the Packers, just how he never made a bad decision. Mm-hmm. At least it seemed that way. It was like always he made a good throw, a lot like Brady. Totally 2 different styles of play. But Brady was like a he's non-mobile, where Aaron is mobile. But Tom knew his limitations and always made the right decision. Well, Aaron did the same thing, but with more talent,
mm-hmm.
personal talent. He could throw it from going to his left, his right, backpedaling, and the throw was always picture perfect. And I think, barring injury, the Jets will be a contender for the Super Bowl. I really do. I think their defense has been outstanding. Their offense has been horrible. And there's no question that Aaron can, put points on the board. And I think that's all they need to get them over the hump.
Yeah. They got, they got great weapons. He's got a great running back. Garrett Wilson, some great wide receivers. It was I was watching that game last year when he went down on the first or second play of the game. Yeah. That was insane to see. I've always been a Rodgers fan. I grew up a Packers fan, so it's like, he was a legendary quarterback at the Packers just after you. So I hope he does well. And it's will be a great story coming back from injury, 40 years old.
Potentially. And he is and it's kind of weird for me to say this because I was just like him at one point, but he is a in my opinion, a young 40, even though he's played just as long as I have.
Yeah.
He's a young, and I just don't think he's had the hits.
Hmm.
I think he's been smarter too with taking care of his body and
Sure.
not reckless. And I think that served him well. I mean, that was such a freak injury last year that,
Yep.
it's one of those you just write off. I mean, after all the years of playing and hits and you get that injury.
Yeah. Totally.
But it's not an injury, I think, where you're constantly thinking about it in the future, like an ACL or something. Am I going
Yeah.
to cut? Am I going to blow my or a Tommy John or something like that? I mean, this is something that he can recover from and be just as mobile, I think, as
Hmm.
he's ever been. I don't see decline in his game. Now, it's been a while since we've seen him play, but I don't see a decline in his game
Yeah.
like you would expect.
Yeah.
So
Like,
it's going to be interesting.
yeah, I mean, like you said, his IQ, no matter if you like him or not, is insane.
Yeah.
You hear him talk about anything. He dissects anything, and you can
Yeah.
hear it in his voice.
Politics, vaccine,
Anything.
defenses,
Yeah.
nothing's off limits. But when he talks,
Ayahuasca, I
you
think he's
go,
out there.
there are people that talk about stuff that they have no idea what they're talking about, and
Yeah.
it's obvious to everyone but the person talking about it. But when Aaron talks about something, you go, sounds pretty dang good to me.
Yeah, for sure. Um, with uh with this season, you got a prediction for the Super Bowl?
I'm pretty. I, I don't look into it and dissect it like some people because I think you can overanalyze just about anything in life. Football certainly, because there's a lot of factors that go into a team's success or an individual success. Obviously the Jets, a lot of hype, a lot of expectations. Aaron gets hurt, boom, they go, they spiral out, just quickly. But I mean, you got to, whether you like the Chiefs or not, until someone unseats them,
Mm-hmm.
they're the front runners. Do I
Yeah.
think they're the best team? I don't know. I don't know if they were the best team last year, but the right players in the right places playing like they're capable of, which
Yeah.
is what happened with Mahomes.
And you said Andy
They're-
Reid. I mean, he's such a
and
good
Andy,
coach.
Andy, that combination is deadly. Their defense is stout. Uh, they're the front runner. Do I think Buffalo will be right there? There's no reason to say that they'll be any different than last year.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a matter of, can they get over the hump? That remains to be seen. I think you throw the Jets in with the healthy Aaron. Definitely their division is not like it was when Brady and Belichick were together. And
Yeah, definitely.
you knew that they were going to win it, and then it was everybody else. It ain't like that anymore. They're all beatable.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all competitive. The Jets, they're going to be competitive. Buffalo's going to be competitive. The one that may not be as competitive as New England remains to be seen. Miami is right there. So I think Buffalo, Kansas City, I think the Jets, I think Houston, if they build off of their success last year, they can be a force.
Yeah, they got a lot of young
and
talent.
then you got to look at the Packers, Detroit, and San Francisco certainly as the top three in the NFC, with some tweeners in there. Dallas, who knows what they're going to do? They can be great or not so great. But there's teams a lot like that are kind of teetering on.
Baltimore is always right there too.
Yeah.
With you announced something yesterday. I think it's called 4th and Favre. What is this?
We're just going to, me and David Cano, who actually was the brains behind Concussed. Good guy. We've been friends for quite a while now. We were just talking about different stuff the other day, and he said, "You got any interest if you're not doing a show?" Which I'm not. He said, "Yeah, got any interest in doing like a 20-minute weekly segment where we just kind of talk about the quarterback play and maybe the latest news, whether it be an injury or a trade or something, and just kind of talk about the state of quarterback play and where the NFL is that week." And I said, "Yeah, that sounds fun."
Yeah.
And I said, "As long as we keep it short, You know, I'd rather be out in the yard raking or edging the driveway, which is crazy, than sitting in an hour, you know, dissertation on the latest and greatest in NFL football. But I think it would be fun, and you know, if people want to tune in, I think it'll be informative. I'll give my best observation of that week.
Yeah, sure. No, I'm excited for it. With do you have your elk hunt set up?
This year we're not going to go.
No.
No, we just wait for whitetail season, which is October, November, December, and part of January, and
Hmm.
give it our best shot.
With with you, I know last time we talked about biking a good bit, and before we started recording, you said you're on the bike still some. Is that still one of the main things you do for your training?
Yeah, it's the one thing I can do now that doesn't hurt. I mean, you can always wreck on a bike, but you can
Hmm.
ride on an indoor bike, which I do, uh, and outside with the group. In fact, if everything goes according to plan, we're going to do a bike ride in Greenville out there by you with George Hincapie. I don't know if you know George,
Oh
and,
yeah,
you know, legend in the Tour de France. Good, just
legend.
great dude. Has asked me for the last 4 or 5 years to come to his big bike ride he has. I think it's
Oh yeah.
October 19th or 17th or something. So I'm signed up for it. I told him I'm now. A lot can happen between now and then. You know,
Hmm.
I've been, as I told you earlier, I've been having some back issues, um, and dealing with that has been. Now, when I'm on the bike, my back feels great.
Yeah.
I go to the range, I swing, my back, I wouldn't say feels great, but it doesn't, you know, it's not like, oh, but usually after I hit balls, I've got a little twinge in my leg or
Hmm.
lower back. So I don't have that with biking. So it's the one thing that I used to run, can't run. I don't do a lot of weights. I try to do in one day a week. I just try to do some maintaining stuff on my shoulders and stuff like that. But biking is really kind of what I'm in. You know, I'm all in. I try to get about
No, I
125 to
love biking.
50 miles a week.
Yeah. Does Deanna still ride? Does she ride with
She's
you?
actually got it. She's got an Ironman this coming Sunday.
Dang.
She says it's her last one, but as I found with people that do Ironman, they always say that's it. Kind of like back when I was drinking and drinking heavily. I can't count the times I said I'm done. That's it. That's the last. And then a week later, maybe one or two.
Yeah.
That's what an Ironman competitor is like. They'll say that's it because the training is horrible.
Hmm.
And but she's got one coming up Sunday. Yeah.
Dang. Do you have any are you jealous about her being able to do that at all?
No, because I have no desire. When you look at the training regimen that they have to do for an Ironman, like, you know, 4 or 5 weeks out from the race, it's kind of the peak of their training. And I'm like, what do you got today?
Hmm.
Well, I got to do a 100-mile ride
Dang.
and I'm going to swim a mile and a half after. And I'm like, that just doesn't turn me on. You know, so that's to me, that's over and beyond the fun aspect of it. I like to
Hmm.
bike, and you can be competitive with the group. You can try to hang in there. You can beat your last time, and I look forward to that. But if someone said, "All right, let's go ride 100 miles and over 5 big hills just for fun," I would be like, you know, us 30 may be a little more fun than 100.
What how are your daughters doing?
Doing great. I got three. My oldest daughter's 35, and she teaches creative writing and art at this wonderful school that my grandkids go to. The only thing negative about the school is it only goes up to the 8th grade, but wonderful school. And my son-in-law is the cross country and soccer coach for the school.
Nice.
Great guy. And my three grand boys are just dynamite kids, a lot better than I ever was.
With last question about concussed. You mentioned you said your grandchildren. If they want to play football, will you allow them to play, or
You
you know
know,
what do
people
you?
ask me that all the time, and here's the simplest response I can give you. I have never, all three of them, the oldest is 14, the second is 10, and the third is 7. They have never mentioned playing football. It's never, I've never heard, now, like the oldest one has asked me questions about when I played,
Hmm.
but none of them have ever said, I think I want to play football. They play soccer and baseball.
Nice.
And they're trying to get into golf, which I strongly encourage them to get into golf. But I'm never going to say, why don't you play football? If they said we want to play, I would support them. But
Sure.
I'm never going to push them to play it. It's just the head injuries, the injuries just in general, and the expectation level that they would be expected to perform at
Sure.
would just be unfair.
Yep.
So I just, whatever they want to do, I'll support them.
I got you. I think if I do have kids, that's how I'm gonna be. With uh with that, I mean, Favre, thank you so much for coming on. It's been such a pleasure
Sam,
having
always
you.
a pleasure. You and I met, what, 4 years ago at the BMW
That's right.
and had a blast.
We sure did.
I don't know if you helped my golf game, but you certainly didn't hurt
I mean, I still tell people about you ripping 3 irons. Like I don't know how far you hit your 3 iron or 5 iron, but that shit goes a long ways.
it. It's the equipment. Part of it's the equipment. I'd say a big part of it is the equipment nowadays, but my body, I went out and hit balls yesterday and I felt okay. But a golf swing, there's a lot of science behind a golf swing.
Mhm.
And when you see a good golf swing, it's someone who has not been beat up. They got a lot of flexibility and they just make it look so easy. And I get out there and like nothing wants to cooperate at the same time, the same way. So my left shoulder is wanting to do something totally different than my right hip, and it's got to all be fluid. And just too many sacks. I think I'm
Yeah.
tight. I'm beat up. I don't rotate. I use arms a lot rather than a full body turn. But
Mhm.
all in all, I can't complain because I'm still able to do it.
Yes, sir. I got to meet Bus Cook too. How's Bus doing?
Bus is doing okay. After we left you, not long after that, he got COVID,
Mm.
and he was in intensive care for 12 days. They wouldn't let anybody see him, including his family. When he came out, we went over to his house to see him. I mean, and Bus is like my family.
Mhm.
We go way back, way back. And I love him like my dad. And it was hard to see him in his house, about 115 pounds, pushing around the oxygen
Yeah, that'd be tough.
deal connected to his nose. But he still looks frail, but he's back and still representing players and hustling and doing all that stuff. And and the Bus is getting up there. He's in his mid-70s, but one of the greatest guys. And
Yeah.
it's good to see him back. But this guy, I don't know if we told you, when I met Bus, he was the amateur champ in Mississippi for like
Mhm.
3 or 4 years straight. He was in his 40s and he was a dynamite player.
Dang.
And all you had to do was ask him. He would tell you. He was not shy about it and could back it up. But now I don't even think he even picks up a club.
Yeah. It was a joy to meet him.
Yeah.
He was awesome. We got to have lunch one day, and he was kind of quiet at the table, but whenever he said something, man, the
Yeah,
table paid attention.
absolutely.
Well, Brett, thank you again for coming on, and I'll have all the links to your new shows and of course Concussed in the show notes. But it was an absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining me, and I'm looking forward to chatting maybe one day, maybe
Yeah.
when you're in Greenville. Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah. That'd be great. Always a pleasure, Sam. I think a lot of you. And we don't know each other all that well, but I consider you a good friend.
Well, I appreciate that. That means a lot. Yeah, you were one of my idols growing up. So who would have thought?
Yeah.